light of Dementus!
Dementus falls into the pattern of the Romans, Genghis Khan, Hannibal, the people who maraud across a great vast land.
He is here to lay siege on you!
There was a sort of messiah quality to who he was. And he decides that, okay, this is the next step for me to take over and rule the wasteland.
Bring me your leaders! Throw them down and save yourselves!
He has to have all the hallmarks of charismatic leaders. He needs to be unpredictable. He needs to be accessible and mysterious at the same time.
3, 4, 5, what do we do?
There's a flamboyant sort of nature to this guy, certainly, which was fun, but the slippery slope with playing a villain is just to think of them as villainous. We had many, many discussions, months of discussions prior to shooting, about who this guy once was.
Now, the first half of this sequence is storyboarded. From the very first meeting, I asked Chris how he thought people perceived him. What was his public persona?
This is somewhat of a performance for her in the sense of look how...
And I was surprised by how acute his observations were.
Do you whistle? I can whistle.
Yeah?
Before I knew it, George was suddenly twigged on to, not Chris, the sort of Thor actor, but Chris, the guy that was behind the image that is Chris.
See you guys.
Bye.
We talked about charisma. And he said, you need humour to be charismatic.
You're nice.
Okay. You're nice. You're
No, you are nice.
You're nice.
These charismatic leaders, they're very engaging. They have a sense of humour. They have a playfulness that can draw you in.
Action! Idiots!
Initially, I was going in another direction, but once I met Chris, I thought, he's the one who should take on Dementus. Page 2, I'm just changing some of the lines here.
Unlike anything I've done before. For a long time, I had no idea who he was. I got quite nervous in the lead up 2 weeks before we started shooting. Still hadn't found the voice.
Oh, see, I crave nothing but revenge, a big belly full of revenge. That's your problem.
I wanted to make sure that when the audience met the character, they didn't carry too much of the public Chris there.
Every time I tried to sort of read the lines, I thought, this guy just sounds like me. I wanted there to be something abrasive about him, something that was piercing and belligerent and obnoxious.
Was everyone?
I was sitting at the park one day with my kids watching seagulls like fight over chips and bread and stuff that the kids had found. They were just, they're kind of... Something about that kind of sat in my head.
Action.
It was quite a strain in my throat. I can't put it up in there all the time.
Okay's not the word. We've got to be...
All right.
You all right? Yeah, there you go.
Especially in the louder scenes when I'm yelling or having to project.
There's no way to behave. I want what you want.
It just felt like someone that was wound up tight and tense.
Right. You lost your touch.
There were a lot of crew members on Furiosa who had worked with Chris on a couple of the Thor movies who said that they've never seen him so focused ever.
Idiot. Yeah. In fact, you're all idiots.
He wouldn't go back to his trailer. He was always interacting with his biker gang. Chris knew he has to have the trauma that everyone else has.
Go!
Oh my God.
George is such a family guy, so he was like, when everybody who comes here and can have an opportunity to do something.
I didn't ask her to wear it home. I was quite happy for it to be taken off at the end of the day. Dementus, he has a tendency to public displays of violence.
It's all part of the pageantry of the tyrant. No one becomes a demagogue or a tyrant unless they have that pageantry.
I remember researching gurus, people like Michael Jackson, Gaddafi-type people. They all seem to be in the realm of what this character was. And then with cult leaders, I think you'll find Weiss is really one of the things they wear.
We had Dementus wearing a cape made of a parachute. It gave him some sense of majesty, and it was also very practical. They're light, they can insulate you.
The cape can be used to appear like a messiah, as you see at the start of the film, and would represent all the changes that Dementus was going through.
George said, have you ever been very close to a tiger? And I said, no. It looks very beautiful, so you want to touch it, but at the same time, you would be very scared.
It was George's idea to have the shape of the nose, the prosthetic nose. I think just he envisioned sort of Roman statues, Greek statue, something certainly otherworldly from what we see in the wasteland.
The beard is made out of yak hair, and it's a hand-laid, so it means that every day is a new beard.
It's like being buried alive in sand, really itchy, hairy sand.
George always wanted the clean version of that look, but Chris had the idea that it should be more rough, being in the wasteland.
This one pair of contact lenses had quite a large sort of pupil on it, and as soon as I put them in, I looked kind of tweaked and out of my mind and just a little unhinged.
It takes 3 hours between prosthetic, beard, makeup, and wig.
And Chris doesn't like to sit in the chair for a long time, so...
I love you, but you make it so difficult.
Me?
You make it
You might look brilliant, but in a world where there's no rule of law or any rules but to survive, what do you become? When he becomes the red Dementus, he has a red cape. And then as he becomes the dark Dementus, all the soot and oil and everything, it becomes basically grey. The essential question that he asks, what's the amount of moral injury? What trauma do you have to get to this point?
So this item is Dementus' teddy bear. He too has his own journey.
You can hold this if you want it. It became quite a figure through the film, you know. It sort of moves position throughout the film. Worn sort of proud on the back at one point, chest. It's hanging off the hip. It sort of ends up sort of closer to his crotch, and it's all kind of twisted, dark sort of complication to that, which people can sort of fill in their own understanding.
Chris was quite drawn to this little guy because he feels so real. He's slightly worn at the ears and all the places where you might hold a teddy for comfort.
He's a product of the wasteland. I think everyone there has suffered to such an extent. You can't not be hardened and changed and warped. One of the most important scenes in the film for me, I think, and for George too, was maybe the second thing we shot.
We cannot be soft!
The lesson to his men is, do not believe there's something better. Do not display weakness. Do not be soft. That dialogue I felt like was almost something he was repeating that had been yelled to him once upon a time. Something that an abusive father might stamp upon their son.
There's no hope! Not for them, not for you!
He understood his character such that he'd say, I think this character would do this.
A subtle sort of a thing.
That's good.
And
I began to rely on him.
Yeah.
Oh, much better.
Okay, cool.
Chris understood how it fitted into the context of the whole story.
The difference between what it did, but just something. Yeah.
You break my heart, and it's not fair.
Something about that I found it heartbreaking, you know, to have to sort of stifle any emotion and keep it locked up and bury it deep inside. I think he lost all sense of hope that there was something better, an alternative to this.
He does become the face of her pain. He does become her constant tormentor. And he wants to make her tougher, and he wants to make her epic.
We're invited to see, is there a difference between the tyrannical Dementus and Furiosa? Or have they become the same person?
I'm right there with you.
This certainly ignited something in me that I hadn't felt at all or for a long, long time. And something that sort of the moment I had read it to the moment we finished shooting has been spinning around my brain, and I'm sure will continue to do so for a few more years.